There's been a lot of distressing content about what happened last night at Bondi. It can be a lot. And often these days, you can be seeing things against your will. You know, you're seeing it. If you're seeing it, there's a good chance your kids are seeing it as well. How do you deal with the possible psychological effects of this type of news on a growing mind? So we all remember those tragic news events that will be burned into our minds forever. But when the images and videos are available in your phone almost immediately, it is even more intense. So what can you do? Dr. Rachel Hannam is here, Clinical Director of North Brisbane Psychologists. Welcome, Rachel.
Thank you, Sally.
Now, I'm working with some young people who are a lot younger than me today, and it just dawned on me, this might be the first time, you know, people are seeing something like this happen so close to home.
Yeah.
Obviously, the Port Arthur massacre happened when I was in my early 20s.
Yeah.
Something burned into my skull.
Yeah.
But we weren't seeing graphic footage in our hands while we were eating dinner.
Yeah.
How can seeing this stuff affect a mind that's still developing?
It's a really, really interesting, important topic. And I would start by saying it can depend on the personality of the child or young person, because, you know, we see different personalities across adults. Some people are more sensitive, more empathic, other people less so. And, yeah, different kids and young people will be affected differently. But so the parents need to know what their kid's temperament is like and adjust their response accordingly. Those highly sensitive kids who will maybe, because they've got the growing mind, as you said, they've underdeveloped brain, they may think, oh my goodness, it's not safe anywhere, and catastrophize. And I think in those cases, it's good to remember research from experts like Steven Pinker, who's showed that actually at the moment in this point in history, we have less violence than ever in the Western world. Of course, the media would give us a different impression.
Yes.
But, you know, I think kids maybe think, you know, the sky is falling, the apocalypse is coming, and they're not old enough to realise that sadly, tragically, these things have happened through history. So it's probably good to tell them about that if they've been exposed.
It's hard. It'd be hard to explain that, though, because of the frequency of what we're seeing. Right, you know.
There's so much.
And when have kids ever listened to adults?
Well, that's a very good point, Sally. I guess we do our best, we do what we can do. But I guess, you know, my son's 19 and he already gets that I grew up I'm about the same age as you, I grew up in a different time where we didn't get exposed to so much. As one of your callers texted in, it's traumatising for some people to see it over and over. And of course, humans are, you know, the rubbernecks when there's an accident on the side of the road. We kind of got this curiosity to know. We're storytelling machines, so we kind of want the story, and yet it definitely hits a point for all of us where we don't need to know. It's too upsetting. It's not our story.
Dr. Rachel Hannam is with us, Clinical Director of North Brisbane Psychologists. You're on 612 ABC Brisbane and Gold Coast this afternoon. Sally Rope with you in for Kat Feeney, who's taking a well-earned break. Rachel, wanted to play this to you this is from 15-year-old Evie. She spoke with our colleagues at 702 ABC this morning. She had seen the attack on TikTok.
My friends had, no idea this was happening. I was the one that was telling them, and it's parents need to be truthful with their kids. Not telling them the most gruesome, detailed stuff, but they have to tell their kids the truth because this is the world that they're growing up in. They're the future. They're the ones that are going to have to deal with this.
Does she have a point?
Yeah, I don't think it's a good idea to hide our kids from reality. That's why I think we need to restore balance. They're going to find out about it somewhere. It's best to have an open dialogue, but also remind them that what the news doesn't publish, as you know, working in media, is the millions of acts of kindness and generosity and care that happen every day all over the world. And sometimes those things make the news, but they're not as sensational, they're not as clickbaity, so we don't hear about them in the media.
So then, actually something else that Evie says there, she's like, well, this is the way that we live now. Yeah, I mean, that was troubling to me to hear a 15-year-old say it.
I wonder what she meant, if we just live in more violent times, because the research doesn't suggest that. We do live with much greater exposure than ever before. That's true. And so all of us, whether we're, younger or older, need to be so careful with how we consume media and social media, a bit like how we need to be careful with what we put into our bodies, what we put into our minds. And it's a hard job as a parent. I know I have 3 kids to be able to, you can't really control that at a certain age. So
yes.
Education, talking about it. On the other hand, we see boys particularly playing violent video games. And on the other extreme, we may get a desensitization where it doesn't mean anything to the young person because they play games where they're shooting people all the time. And that might be a need with a child like that to talk about it in regards to empathy and, the tragedy of it. And imagine if it was somebody that we knew was happening, the ripple effect, the effects, because that is the reality, as Evie points out.
You're on 612 ABC Brisbane and Gold Coast this afternoon, 13 minutes away from the latest news at 1 o'clock. Dr. Rachel Hannam is here, Clinical Director of North Brisbane Psychologists. Just talking about the tragedy that has happened overnight in Bondi and all of those images and distressing content that we are seeing on screen and your kids possibly are seeing as well. And, I have covered this topic before, Rachel, and I had a few people go, well, we've always seen distressing stuff. I saw the Kennedy assassination and that kind of stuff. And it's like, well, yeah, you did.
Yes.
But you could turn off the TV and it wasn't being served right to us. So, yes, we know that there has always been this distressing stuff, but it's just, and you're not seeing it from... the Kennedy assassination had the Zapruder film. That was it. One angle.
One angle, yeah.
So what should parents then keep in mind when they're talking about this event with their young people?
Well, that's a very good point, I think, that you made. This is not always how it's been in terms of our exposure to graphic and traumatising content. And I think it's never too young to start educating kids about being mindful, being careful, switching off. You're allowed to switch off. But then there is the reality that this stuff happens. And maybe children will be asking, why, Mummy? Why, Daddy? Why? Or to each other at 15, why would anybody do this? And, of course, the psychology of violence is very hard to relate to for young people mostly and complex. And so I think it's wise not to make sweeping statements to your children about one group of people, whether it's, Muslim people, Jewish people, Christian people, black people, white people. We have to be very careful not to reinforce stereotypes because then we collapse the complexity. And I think one hallmark of maturity is that we can understand there are complex problems, that if we simplify them, it's not helpful, but we can learn from them and apply the learning at each step of the way as a culture, as families, so that children learn complex reasoning skills and, develop that executive functioning that they need, and also learn about grief and loss, because that is part of life too.
So obviously there's lots of kids that like to be up to date with the news. They like to know what's going on. How do you balance that then without it taking a toll on your mental health?
Yeah, well, balance is the key, as you said.
Sometimes I want to throw my phone against the wall, Rachel.
Me too. Me too.
Yeah.
And sometimes people want to throw their kids' phones or their partners' phones against the wall. To some degree, most of us have been captured.
Well, also because it's part of my job as well, to be across things and to know things. But then sometimes I'm like, is my brain being fried by this?
Well, what do you think about this, Sally? Sometimes I say technology's made things better and worse.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times.
Exactly. So it's complex, right?
Yeah. Rachel, thank you so much. If there was one thing, though, that you could give, one piece of advice you could give to parents who are listening right now going, what do I do? What would it be?
I would say talk to them about it in these ways a little bit, but have a cut-off point. Get them off screens. Remind them that there's lots of beauty in the world and lots of good and lots of love as well.
Dr. Rachel Hannam, Clinical Director of North Brisbane Psychologists. Thank you so much for coming and taking the time to come in this afternoon.